Welcome to KJ TV, and today we have our guest here, Peter Omari, who is a lawyer in the Twin Cities, and we'll be talking to him to discuss about some of the legal issues. Welcome, Mr. Omari.
Thank you so much.
Now, Mr. Omari, the first question I want to ask you, can you tell us who you are?
Okay, my name is Peter Omari. I was born in Kenya, and I did some of my schooling in Kenya before I moved to India, where I went to science school. After that, I went to law school. Finally returned back to Kenya. I worked there for a year before moving to the Twin Cities.
Okay, and what have you been doing in the Twin Cities?
So I moved to the Twin Cities. I went to law school again at Hamlin. I did my master's in law, and then moved to the state of Virginia, where I was admitted in 2008. Practiced there for a year, and then moved back to the Twin Cities, where I later went back to school for my JD, and then I got admitted in Minnesota in 2015, and this is where I'm practicing right now. I'm with Minnesota Legal Aid. I'm a supervising attorney at their Wilma office.
Thank you. If I can ask you, what really made you to become a lawyer?
I grew up in a well-off family, for their standards in Kenya, where I grew up. My father had an uncle who was a resident magistrate in Yamira for a long time.
Okay.
And I really liked how my father talked about him.
Okay.
Later in life, when I was in the 4th and 5th grade, I had the privilege of visiting a magistrate's court in Butali, next to Malava in Western Kenya,
Okay.
where we went for school purposes twice a year.
Mm.
And I really liked that, and I developed interest after high school. My elder brother had gone to law school, so I also decided to go to law school to study the law and see what actually happens on the other side of the law.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, being a lawyer, and you have lived here, you have seen we have had different regimes, more especially the immigrant community. There is a lot of anxiety about immigration law and even criminal law, how they are attacked. What can you give advice to most of the immigrants who are very anxious?
A lot has happened for the few years that I've been in the United States, especially when there's a change in the presidency. Many things change because our president, has authority on implementing most of the provisions in immigration law that relate to many of the immigrants that come in legally and illegally.
Yes.
So there's been anxiety, especially on family immigration, because before you could come to the United States and your family members could benefit through you.
Okay.
That's one area that President Trump has tried to curb, especially by stopping immigrants coming in from 7 majority Muslim countries.
Okay.
That's the first part, and he's tried at the same time to curb, in this case, illegal immigrants, or immigrants who come to the border seeking for either asylum or refugee status.
Okay.
That has been a big concern to many immigrants in the community.
Okay. And there is one of the things many people who are applying for immigration, which we are seeing. Before, people used to get a request for evidence. Now they are getting a notice of intent to deny. What can you talk about that?
So that is a new switch that was introduced by Sessions and the Trump office, that if you don't submit all the evidence at the first time in your application, then USCIS officers, now instead of giving you time to submit more evidence, they will just send you a notice of intent to deny, so that one, they've raised the bar that you should have submitted all the documents the first time,
Okay.
and at the same time, they're trying to process you quickly, that if you had evidence you should have submitted at the beginning, Otherwise, they're moving quickly with an intention to deny so that they can process files quickly and, if possible, deny any file that they believe is frivolous.
So what do you advise people should do now with that change?
I believe on that particular change, the best that an immigrant can do, you need to seek legal counsel.
Okay.
You need to get an attorney. And
Okay.
in this case, if you are at a particular bracket of income,
Okay.
if you are eligible to get free legal aid, for example, you should go ahead and try seek free legal counsel
Okay.
from many organizations. Among them is Minnesota Legal Aid.
Okay.
We have the Immigrant Law Center. We have the Immigration Project. So we have many projects in that can help. But if you're financially able, I believe in this case I'll advise that you go ahead and seek legal counsel so that you're not found in the quagmire of trying to respond to a notice of intent to deny, which is a slightly higher par than a request for evidence.
Okay. Yeah, that's very good that they should seek legal advice. And one of the things which is occurring that many people are getting rejected, like their application are rejected because they had a prior, like if they were convicted or they were having an altercation with the law, and they are getting this denial. What do you advise such people or those who intend to adjust the status to do?
So if you intend to adjust status and you have a prior criminal conviction,
Okay.
it can be a minor conviction, but for immigration purposes, the crime that you committed, let's say if it's an offense that was prosecuted by the state, for immigration purposes, they look at it differently.
Okay.
The consequences for an immigration benefit or for immigration purposes, the consequences are different.
Okay.
For example, we have a group of crimes that we call as crimes involving moral turpitude. This is a term that has not been defined anywhere. This is
Okay.
a term that is not broken down, that
Okay.
you can tell, for example, what particular offense falls within this moral turpitude. It depends. The crimes involving moral turpitude will loosely be defined as an offense that offends the community. It can be something very minor.
Okay.
For example, if you had a domestic altercation at home,
Okay.
that qualifies to be moved to a level whereby you might be denied an adjustment of status. So my advice will be for anybody planning to adjust to seek legal counsel prior to application.
Okay.
In this case, if you were, for example, convicted through a plea, an attorney might help you to see if that record can be expunged so that it's not reflected or is not taken into consideration during your application for adjustment of status. So that might help somebody. That might help somebody to easily adjust instead of applying with a conviction. Maybe you never got a chance to get an attorney who you didn't get a benefit of an attorney who knew of immigration consequences
Okay.
on the offense that you committed.
Okay. Now, you have talked about moral turpitude and more especially about domestic violence.
Yes.
That has become a big topic among the immigrant community, that we are having so many people with domestic violence, and we have heard all this, and I know being in a legal profession. What can you talk about domestic violence among the immigrant community?
First, domestic violence is a crime.
Okay.
It's a crime of control. It's violence that happens between spouses or sometimes between boyfriend and girlfriend.
Okay.
And this is a crime that in most places in the world where most immigrants come from, they're never reported, or they're not actually taken as serious crimes.
It's not a criminal.
It's not a criminal. It's
Yeah.
not a criminal offense. But when you come to the United States, many of their actions that used to happen. For example, let me give an example. In Kenya, when the husband and wife quarrel and somebody pushes another person at home, it was never considered to be an offense.
An offense.
But in the United States, that's domestic violence. In this case, where you're going to be moved out of the home, and after you're moved out of the home, you're going to be prosecuted. And this particular offense, especially for the state of Minnesota, for immigration purposes, will bar you from adjusting status. So this problem has been going on, and I believe the best way forward is to educate and sensitize immigrants so they know that they're in a new country where many rules that never applied where we came from apply, and we need to be law-abiding citizens.
Now, you have asked about training. Where do we get people? It's like people come here, when an immigrant moves here, he just comes and is told to get a job and move on. Which facility do we have that people can get this training?
I think now that goes back to the community.
Okay.
Most of this training, because first of all, a lack of knowledge of the law is not a defense. So you need to come out and educate yourself. Before, we used to have, many communities have organizations that actually orient and train people so they can know the differences between where they've come from and where they are legally.
Yeah.
I believe we need to go back to our churches, go back to our mosques, go back to our constituency, our clan communities, sensitize them to educate newcomers, or to encourage even the old timers so that they know that they need to be in tune with the law of the new land.
But and that's where I really want some clarification.
Yes.
These people, the immigrants come from, they have what we call a culture of country of origin.
Yes.
Then they come like astronauts, and they land in a country which has a different culture. Now they are living here, we call it a culture of country of residence.
Yes.
Two cultures are clashing here.
Yes.
Why can't we have people like you who are lawyers to defend the community in this government, say, hey, these people have their culture. You cannot just rush them. How about if we educate the American community that where these people come from, there are some of the things you call domestic violence, they are not. Is that not possible?
That's a process that can be done, but can only be done through the ballot. If you become majority in an electoral area, and you change the laws of the land in that particular area, and then you might be able to change laws that are going to be applied to that particular area where these immigrants live. But a minor change of the law that is in the book still stands. Whether you came from a mountain in Tibet, or you came from some place in Africa, for example, South America, the law of the land where you've landed, where you live now, will apply. We have cases whereby we go back to share our story as a form of education to the community.
Okay.
For example, issues of marriage.
Okay.
For example, a few years ago, Kenya passed a new law where polygamy up to 4 wives is now the law of the land. Okay. But when you come to the United States, polygamy offends not only the culture, the norms, but the law of the country. So there are many things that you can try to teach or try to educate, but if they're still illegal and they offend the norms of the country, they will still continue being illegal.
In this country.
In this country.
So thank you very much. That's is a very hot topic we have, and I hope we will have next time to talk much about that. But I want you to take, with your experience in the legal profession, we have had as many people having those domestic violence. Not only that, what are some of the things which get people who come to this country? Some of the things they need to know, which they find themselves in with the law of the land.
There are a number of things. There are many. This being our first introductory session, I'll just name a few.
Okay.
For example, let's start with driver's